A young black man is wrongfully accused and discovers something that will drastically change his life. Imagine having your perfect life destroyed by a lie. Marcus Smith, a talented engineer, was on the verge of achieving his dreams when a shocking accusation led him to an unexpected place. A dark plot, full of manipulation and injustice, threatens to take away everything he has built. But when a young lawyer appears, determined to expose the truth, the game begins to change. Will Marcus be able to turn everything around? Discover the secrets behind the story of struggle, betrayal, and redemption. Get ready for an emotional journey where every detail can change the fate of a man. Marcus Smith was a 30-year-old black man, born and raised in Rivertown, a small town with a humble and close-knit community. From a young age, Marcus demonstrated an uncommon dedication to his studies, often spending hours in the town library while other children played in the streets. His mother, Sharon, raised him alone after the untimely death of his father, who worked as a laborer. Sharon, a woman of strength and determination, worked as a housekeeper in several homes to support the family. Despite the hardships, she never stopped encouraging Marcus to seek a better life through education, believing it was the way to break the cycle of poverty. At 18, Marcus earned a scholarship to study civil engineering at a prestigious university, a feat that filled Sharon with pride. For Marcus, this achievement was the realization of a dream, but it also brought with it the pressure not to disappoint his mother, who had sacrificed so much for him. During his college years, Marcus stood out for his intelligence and dedication, but he also faced social and racial challenges, being one of the few black students in his class. He always remained focused on his studies, determined to achieve his goals and provide a more comfortable life for his mother, who continued to work hard. After graduation, Marcus secured a job at a major construction company in Rivertown, Taylor Constructions. The company had an ambitious project in the city, and Marcus, excited about the opportunity, saw it as the start of a promising career. He was one of the few black engineers at the company, which was a source of pride for him but also a responsibility. He wanted to prove that, regardless of his skin color or where he came from, he could be as competent as anyone else. In the first few months of work, Marcus excelled for his competence, ethics, and technical skills. He quickly gained the trust of his superiors and the respect of many colleagues, although he knew that some viewed him with suspicion. Among these was Ryan Turner, a veteran engineer known for being arrogant and competitive. Ryan, used to being the department's star, never missed an opportunity to belittle Marcus, whether with subtle comments about his limited experience or with veiled criticisms disguised as advice. One day, during a team meeting, Ryan volunteered to lead an important project, eager to reaffirm his position of prominence. However, to his surprise and indignation, the boss, Mr. Taylor, decided to give the leadership to Marcus. The decision was based on Marcus's technical competence and impeccable performance, but Ryan deeply resented it. For him, it was a personal blow, and from that moment on, the work environment became more tense for Marcus. Ryan, visibly uncomfortable, began treating him with even more hostility, making sure to emphasize any small mistake or setback. What Marcus didn't know was that Ryan was planning something much darker to get revenge. With access to the company's materials and documentation, Ryan began to devise a plan to frame Marcus. He knew that any slip-up by Marcus, no matter how small, could be amplified by the racial issue, still subtly present in the company's culture and the local society. Then, on a seemingly ordinary workday, an incident completely changed Marcus's life. He was called to Mr. Taylor's office, where some other superiors and a police officer were present. The accusation was serious: theft of valuable company materials. Marcus, stunned, tried to defend himself, claiming he had no involvement in such activities, but the evidence, carefully manipulated by Ryan, seemed undeniable. Ryan, with a look of fake concern, was one of the first to accuse him, claiming to have seen Marcus at suspicious times in the storage area. When the security cameras were checked, There were images that apparently corroborated the accusation. Marcus was in shock. He knew he was innocent, but how could he prove it when the evidence was against him? The arrest came quickly. The police took him into custody, and as he was escorted through the company's corridors, he felt the disapproving looks from some colleagues. What hurt the most was seeing the look of disappointment on the face of his boss, someone he deeply respected. The news spread like wildfire in Rivertown, and the community, which once saw him as a role model, was now divided. Some still believed in his innocence, but many others began to doubt. Inside the cold, dark cell, Marcus wondered how it had all come to this. He had always been an honest, hardworking, and dedicated man, but now his life was falling apart before his eyes. While awaiting the outcome of the investigations, all he could do was hold on to the hope that the truth would eventually come to light. The days in prison dragged on like an endless nightmare for Marcus. The cold, damp cell seemed to swallow any hope he tried to grasp. He was surrounded by men who looked at him with curiosity or suspicion, some even with contempt, as if he were guilty beyond a shadow of a doubt. Marcus knew the evidence against him was incriminating, but the injustice of the situation ate away at him, fueling a silent but growing anger. Every time he received a visit from his mother, Sharon, he tried to maintain a strong expression, but inside, he felt like he was falling apart. Sharon, on the other hand, didn't hide her suffering. Seeing her son, who had always worked so hard to succeed, in this situation was more than she could bear. She repeated to him that she believed in his innocence, but her voice trembled with worry. "We'll get through this, Marcus. I know you didn't do anything wrong. God knows you're innocent," she would say, holding his hands tightly through the bars of the cell, trying to convey a strength that she herself could barely find. While Marcus was in prison, rumors spread through Rivertown. Some of the old neighbors and friends he had known since childhood began to distance themselves, stopping their visits to Sharon and avoiding any mention of Marcus's name. Distrust hung over him like a dark cloud, and the looks people gave Sharon as she passed through town were filled with judgment. She avoided going out, doing only what was essential, fearing the questions and whispers that followed her. Marcus knew that even if he proved his innocence, the scars of this experience would remain forever, both in him and in his mother. Within the company, the situation was far from resolved. Mr. Taylor, who initially believed in Marcus, was now pressured by the board to resolve the issue quickly. The company couldn't afford a prolonged scandal, and the longer Marcus stayed in prison, the worse the company's image became. Ryan Turner, on the other hand, remained discreet but inwardly celebrated every step of Marcus's downfall. He had orchestrated everything with precision, planting evidence and manipulating the security camera footage. For Ryan, it was only a matter of time before Marcus was convicted and disappeared from the company and Rivertown forever. However, Marcus was not completely alone. A young lawyer named Lisa Parker, who volunteered for a social justice project, heard about Marcus's case through a local news report. Something about the story deeply disturbed her, and she decided to investigate on her own. Lisa was known for her dedication to cases of injustice, especially those involving racial discrimination. She believed that the legal system often failed to protect the most vulnerable, and Marcus seemed to be another victim of this flawed system. Lisa visited Marcus in prison and, right away, she saw that he was innocent. His eyes, despite the evident suffering, still had a glimmer of integrity and honesty that she recognized instantly. "I believe you, Marcus," she said firmly during their first conversation. "I know the evidence is against you, but I'll do everything I can to prove your innocence. This story doesn't add up, and I'll find out what really happened." Lisa's arrival brought a ray of hope to Marcus, but he knew the fight would be arduous. She began investigating the case meticulously, reviewing the evidence, the security camera footage, and interviewing company employees. What Lisa discovered was disturbing. Ryan Turner, the main accuser of Marcus, had a history of suspicious behavior. Several reports from colleagues indicated that Ryan was not trustworthy and that he had been involved in some irregular transactions in the past. But these allegations were never formally investigated. Lisa continued to dig deeper. She discovered that Ryan had access to the security cameras and, with the help of a technician friend, obtained evidence that the footage presented as proof had been tampered with. Marcus had been manipulated to appear guilty. Lisa also discovered that a large amount of materials had mysteriously disappeared from the company, and all the clues pointed to Ryan. These new findings began to form a clear picture in Lisa's mind. Marcus had been framed by someone with power and influence within the company. With these new facts in hand, Lisa knew she was on the right track, but she also understood that proving Marcus's innocence wouldn't be easy. The system was against them, and racial prejudice, though subtle, could be felt in every interaction with the authorities. Even so, Lisa was determined to fight to the end. "We'll expose the truth, Marcus," she said, looking into his eyes during one of her visits. "I won't rest until you're free and the real culprits are held accountable." Lisa's promise gave Marcus the strength he needed to keep fighting, even in the face of adversity. He knew he was no longer alone and that, regardless of what happened, the truth was finally coming to light. Lisa's investigation began to take shape, but the deeper she dug, the more she realized how deep the trap set against Marcus was. The case was far from simple, and the forces against them seemed to multiply with each new discovery. The tampered evidence, the forged testimonies, and the underlying prejudice made the fight for justice a real minefield. In addition, the psychological pressure on Marcus intensified with each passing day, wearing him down emotionally and physically. Inside the prison, Marcus faced a different battle. The psychological tension of being unjustly incarcerated was wearing him down. The constant doubt about his future and the anguish of watching his life fall apart without being able to do anything to stop it consumed him. The days dragged on in an endless cycle of fear and uncertainty. The darkness and silence of the cell seemed to amplify his thoughts, and he found himself reliving every detail of what had happened, trying to understand how it all went so wrong. Sharon continued to visit her son regularly, trying to give him strength. She brought homemade food and stories of better times, trying to keep the flame of hope alive in Marcus. "I always said you were strong, Marcus. You've always overcome difficulties, and I know you'll overcome this too," she would say, her voice firm, but her eyes filled with tears. Marcus smiled at her, but the weight of everything that was happening made it difficult to keep hope alive. Lisa, on the other hand, was determined not to let Marcus be forgotten. With the help of some colleagues and a trusted IT technician, she managed to recover security camera footage that had been deleted. These images clearly showed Ryan Turner tampering with the security records on the night the materials disappeared. It was crucial evidence, but it still wasn't enough. They needed to directly link Ryan to the theft of the materials and prove that he had deliberately framed Marcus. The community of Rivertown was also divided. While some continued to support Marcus, others believed he was guilty. The local press had exploited the story to the fullest, and public opinion was polarized. Some community leaders tried to organize peaceful protests in favor of Marcus, but the police presence and the racial tensions that arose made everything even more complicated. Discussions about Marcus's case became a point of contention in the town, exacerbating old social wounds. Lisa knew she needed to act quickly. She contacted a former colleague who worked in the local prosecutor's office. Knowing the risks, she managed to persuade him to review the new evidence she had collected. Upon seeing the footage and the inconsistencies in the case, the prosecutor agreed to open a parallel investigation, but he warned Lisa about the difficulties they would face. "You're challenging the system, Lisa. This won't be easy. Even if you're right, the people who want to keep things the way they are won't back down without a fight." The prosecutor's words echoed in Lisa's mind, but she couldn't back down. She knew that Marcus was counting on her, and more than that, she was fighting against something bigger than just a theft case. It was a fight against prejudice, against injustice, and she was willing to go all the way. However, things began to get even more complicated. When Ryan Turner realized that Lisa was getting closer to the truth, he began to act more aggressively. He made veiled threats, both against Lisa and against other employees who might testify against him. Fear began to spread among those who knew the truth, and some of Lisa's potential allies began to back away, worried about their own safety. Lisa, however, was not intimidated. She continued to push forward, and in a bold move decided to confront Ryan directly. During a visit to the company, she managed to find Ryan in the parking lot. "I know what you did, Ryan," she said, facing him with determination. "I have enough evidence to bring you down. It's only a matter of time before the police are after you." Ryan, who was not used to being challenged, laughed disdainfully. "You think you're going to bring me down, Parker? Good luck. You have no idea who you're dealing with. Marcus is going to rot in jail, and you? Well, you'd better be careful. People who mess where they shouldn't usually end up getting hurt." Ryan's words only increased Lisa's determination. She knew he was bluffing, but she also knew she was dealing with a dangerous man, willing to do anything to protect his own interests. She needed to act quickly before he could cause even more damage. With time running out and pressure mounting from all sides, Lisa found herself at an impasse. She had the evidence, but she needed a key witness who could confirm Ryan's connection to the theft and the framing of Marcus. Then, an unexpected twist occurred. One of the company's employees, a young assistant named Jake, secretly approached Lisa. He was visibly nervous but determined to speak out. "I saw what Ryan did," Jake confessed. "I was there that night. He threatened me not to say anything, but I can't live with this anymore. Marcus is innocent, and I need to tell the truth." With Jake's testimony in hand, Lisa felt that the scales of justice were finally tipping in Marcus's favor. However, she knew she couldn't afford to celebrate just yet. As Ryan Turner realized that the noose was tightening, he became increasingly desperate and aggressive. He tried to intimidate Jake, sending anonymous threats, but the young man was determined to do the right thing, even if it meant putting his life at risk. Lisa met with Jake in a discreet cafe in Rivertown, where he told her everything he knew. He explained how, on the night of the theft, Ryan had forced him to help manipulate the security footage and plant the false evidence in Marcus's workplace. "I was scared, Lisa. He said that if I didn't help, I'd lose my job, or worse," Jake confessed, his eyes filled with guilt. "I know I should have said something earlier, but I just couldn't. Now I know I need to do the right thing." With Jake's testimony, Lisa had everything she needed to go to the prosecutor and demand that the charges against Marcus be dropped. However, she knew that Ryan wouldn't give up without a fight. He was an influential man within the company with many contacts and power. Bringing him down would be a complicated task, but Lisa was determined to expose the whole truth, no matter the cost. The tension reached its peak when Lisa contacted the prosecutor, bringing all the new evidence, including Jake's testimony. The prosecutor, impressed by the solidity of the evidence, decided to reopen the case. He agreed to bring the new evidence to court but warned Lisa about the challenges they would face. "Ryan Turner isn't going to back down easily," said the prosecutor. "He'll probably use every possible means to discredit this new evidence and continue his charade." Meanwhile, inside the prison, Marcus clung to the hope that Lisa had brought, but the waiting and uncertainty were becoming unbearable. With each passing day, he felt more suffocated by the injustice of the situation. Sharon's visits and the news brought by Lisa were what kept him strong, but the weight of unjust imprisonment was beginning to become almost unbearable. Marcus reflected on how his once promising life was now on the brink of total collapse, all because of a carefully constructed lie. The day of the trial finally arrived, and the courtroom was packed. The news that new evidence would be presented had spread through the town, and everyone wanted to see the outcome of the case. Sharon was sitting in the front row, her hands trembling but holding her head high in support of her son. Lisa was beside Marcus, ready to face Ryan and the system that had allowed this injustice to occur. Marcus, though nervous, was determined to fight for his freedom, believing that, finally, the truth would prevail. When the trial began, the prosecution presented the new evidence convincingly. The tampered security footage, the threats made to Jake, and Jake's own testimony formed a web of evidence that was impossible to ignore. Ryan, who had started the day with his usual arrogant confidence, began to sweat as the pieces of his plan fell apart before everyone's eyes. However, Ryan's defense did not go down without a fight. His lawyer tried to discredit Jake, questioning his credibility and suggesting that he was lying to protect himself. It was a tense moment in the courtroom, and Lisa knew that the case's outcome was still uncertain. But Jake, courageous despite his fear, stood firm in his testimony, reaffirming every detail of what he had witnessed. When Lisa was called to present her part of the case, she spoke with conviction about the injustice Marcus had suffered, highlighting how prejudice and evidence manipulation had almost ruined the life of an innocent man. This case is a clear example of how the system can fail, especially when underlying prejudices and power plays come into play, she told the court. Marcus Smith is an honest, hardworking man, and the only thing he's guilty of is being in the wrong place at the wrong time, under the scrutiny of someone willing to do anything to protect their own interests. The audience held its breath as the judge retired to deliberate. The minutes that followed were filled with pure tension, with Marcus and his mother holding hands, waiting for the verdict. Sharon, with her eyes closed, prayed silently, while Marcus prepared himself for whatever the outcome might be, knowing that he had done everything he could to prove his innocence. When the judge returned to the courtroom, the silence was almost deafening. After reviewing all the new evidence presented, this court concludes that Marcus Smith is innocent of all charges, declared the judge. The evidence against him was clearly manipulated, and the true responsibility for the crimes committed falls on Ryan Turner. The room exploded in murmurs of surprise and relief. Sharon began to cry with emotion, and Marcus, still in shock, finally felt the weight of the injustice lifted from his shoulders. He hugged his mother tightly, tears of relief streaming down his face. Ryan was immediately arrested in the courtroom, protesting vehemently, but his words fell on deaf ears. The charade was over, and the truth had finally prevailed. Marcus was released, and as he left the courthouse, he was greeted by a crowd of supporters. The nightmare was finally over, but he knew that the fight against injustice and prejudice was far from over. Embraced by his mother, he thanked Lisa, who smiled, satisfied that she had helped bring justice to a man who deserved much more than the system had offered him. After the verdict, Marcus's life took a significant turn. Although his innocence had been proven, the effects of the ordeal still haunted him. He was welcomed as a hero by many in the Rivertown community, but he also knew that, for some, doubts about his character might persist, even in the face of indisputable evidence. The pain and distrust caused by this experience left deep scars, both in Marcus and in his mother. Taylor Constructions, where it all began, faced a period of turmoil after the trial. The revelation of the embezzlement scheme and the attempt to frame an innocent employee tarnished the company's reputation. Ryan Turner, now imprisoned and awaiting trial for his crimes, became the symbol of the worst the company had to offer. Taylor Constructions management hurried to distance itself from Ryan, firing other employees who were accomplices in his scheme and offering Marcus the opportunity to return to his old position. However, Marcus was no longer interested in returning to the company. The experience had profoundly changed his perspective on what he wanted for the future. "I spent so much time trying to prove my worth to people who didn't really care about me," he reflected, talking to Lisa as they walked through a city park. "Now, I want to do something that really makes an impact, something that helps the people who need it most." Inspired by his experience and the help he received from Lisa, Marcus decided to open his own engineering consultancy. His idea was to create a company that offered affordable services to underserved communities, helping to develop sustainable infrastructure projects and providing opportunities for local young talents, especially those who, like him, face challenges because of their backgrounds. Lisa, who had become a close friend throughout the process, offered her help in setting up the business. "You have a clear vision of what you want to do, Marcus, and I know you're going to make it," she said. "Besides, you're an example of resilience. Your story can inspire others to fight for justice and not give up in the face of difficulties." With Lisa's support and other friends he had made along the way, Marcus began to build his company. He started small, working on smaller projects within Rivertown, but soon his reputation as a talented and committed engineer began to spread. Neighboring communities started seeking him out to develop projects that would otherwise be inaccessible to them. His company, Smith Engineering Solutions, quickly became a reference in sustainable community projects. Marcus also decided to give lectures at local schools and universities, sharing his story and encouraging young people to pursue their dreams, regardless of the obstacles they might encounter along the way. He knew that many faced the same barriers he did and wanted to be a source of hope and motivation for them. "I know what it's like to be discredited because of your skin color or your background," he would say to the students. "But the truth is, you have incredible power within you, and no one can take that away, as long as you never give up." Marcus's story began to attract the attention of the local and eventually national media. Newspapers and television programs wanted to know more about the young engineer who turned a terrible injustice into an opportunity to make a difference. The interviews and reports not only helped promote his company but also broadened the discussion about prejudice and injustice in the legal system and large corporations. Meanwhile, Lisa continued her work as a social justice lawyer, but now with a stronger partnership with Marcus. They began collaborating on projects that combined engineering and legal advocacy, helping to build infrastructure in marginalized communities while also fighting for the rights of those same communities in the legal system. Together, they formed a powerful team dedicated to making a difference. Sharon, Marcus's mother, watched with pride as her son and his company grew. She had always believed in him, even in the darkest moments, and now she saw his work as a reward not only for Marcus's efforts but also for all the struggles they had faced together. "You've always been my hero, Marcus," she would often say, smiling proudly. "But now the whole world knows it too." Reflecting on everything that had happened, Marcus realized that although the experience of being unjustly accused had been painful, it had also given him a new perspective on life. He had discovered strengths he didn't know he had and found a purpose he would never have imagined if he hadn't gone through it. Sometimes, the greatest challenges show us who we really are and what we're capable of doing, he thought, looking out at the horizon with a sense of peace. Now, Marcus had a bright future ahead. He was no longer just the young engineer wrongfully accused. He was a leader, a mentor, and an inspiration to many. And most importantly, he had turned a devastating experience into an opportunity to do good and help others find their own way. Time passed, and Smith Engineering Solutions grew from a small local consultancy into a company recognized throughout the state. Marcus continued to work tirelessly, with the same passion and dedication that had always characterized him. However, now he wasn't just building bridges and roads, he was building opportunities and hope for those who, like him, needed a chance. Marcus's story became a symbol of resilience and overcoming in Rivertown and beyond. He was invited to give lectures at conferences, universities, and community events, sharing his life experience and inspiring others to persevere in the face of adversity. His message was clear: injustice can bring us down, but it should never define us. Lisa remained by his side, not just as a professional ally but as a loyal friend and confidant. They continued to collaborate on projects that combined engineering and social justice, helping marginalized communities to develop and empower themselves. Their partnership flourished, and together, they managed to transform many lives. One of Marcus's most impactful projects was the development of a community center in Rivertown. The center offered training courses in engineering, technology, and entrepreneurship for young people in the community, many of whom faced similar difficulties to those Marcus had faced in the past. He made sure the center was accessible to everyone, with mentoring programs and scholarships for those who needed extra support. The education and support I received were crucial for me to get where I am today, Marcus said during the center's opening ceremony. Now, it's my turn to give back by helping others find their way and achieve their dreams. The impact of the center was immediate. Young people who had previously seen few prospects in their lives began to engage in the courses and programs offered, finding new opportunities and developing skills that would allow them to build a better future. Marcus became a mentor to many of these young people, offering not only technical knowledge but also guidance on how to overcome life's challenges. Marcus's personal life also began to flourish. After years devoted almost exclusively to work and the fight for justice, he allowed himself to open his heart to new experiences. At one of the many community meetings he attended, he met a young teacher named Claire, who shared his passion for helping others. Over time, they developed a solid relationship based on mutual respect and shared values. Claire was someone who fully understood and supported Marcus's mission, and together, they dreamed of building a life based on love and service to the community. Sharon, Marcus's mother, followed all these developments with quiet pride. She had always known her son had something special, and now she saw that potential realized in ways she could never have imagined. She became a beloved figure in the community, often seen at the community center, sharing stories and offering advice to young people seeking guidance. "My mother has always been my greatest inspiration," Marcus would often say. "Everything I do is to honor the sacrifices she made for me." Despite all the success and recognition, Marcus never forgot what had brought him to that point. He continued to speak openly about the injustice he had suffered and the importance of reforming the system to prevent others from going through what he had. He supported causes and organizations that fought against discrimination and prejudice and made sure to use his platform to promote meaningful change. As the years passed, Marcus saw his company grow and prosper, but what really satisfied him was the impact he was having on people's lives. He knew that what he was building went far beyond physical structures. He was helping to build stronger, more united, and more just communities. Looking back at the young man who had been wrongfully accused of a crime he didn't commit, Marcus saw a path full of difficulties but also filled with learning and transformation. He had turned pain into strength, injustice into opportunity, and in the process, discovered his true purpose. One day, while walking through the park he loved so much, reflecting on everything he had accomplished, Marcus felt a deep sense of peace. He knew there was still much to do, many challenges to face, but he was ready for each of them. "Life gives us the challenges we need to grow," he thought, "and it's up to us to decide what we do with them." Marcus was now more than just an engineer or an entrepreneur. He was a leader, a mentor, and, above all, an example that it is possible to overcome even the greatest adversities and use those experiences to transform the world around us. He knew his work would never end, but he was more than willing to continue this journey, helping to build a better future for everyone.